Today, when we look at the sky, we see planets, distant, silent, beautiful. But there was a time in history when the sky was not just something to observe, it was something to obey. People believed the earth did not write its own fate. Fate was written above, and every movement in the heavens was reflected below. When a planet shifted, a king could fall. When a star burned brighter, a war could begin. When an eclipse appeared, entire cities trembled. Because this was not coincidence, it was a warning. Kings believed themselves powerful. They commanded armies. They ruled cities. They controlled gold and land. But when it came time to decide, they did not look to their generals. They did not listen to their people. They looked up. Because choosing the wrong day, the wrong hour, the wrong alignment could bring disaster. And disaster had a name: the anger of the stars. In that world, an astrologer was not an entertainer. He was a gatekeeper of fate. He did not say, "This will happen." He said, "This could happen." And for kings, that possibility was enough, because a single possibility could destroy an empire. People believed the planets were not silent. They were speaking. Only a few claimed to understand the language. Those few were welcomed into palaces. The rest were told to remain silent. Today we look at the sky and ask, is there life out there? But back then, people looked upward and asked a different question. What have they decided for us? And this story is not about planets in the sky. It is about a time when planets ruled the earth. Rudolf II was not an ordinary emperor. He ruled one of the most powerful empires in Europe. Yet his reign was shaped not by conquest, but by hesitation. Rudolf spent his early years in the Spanish court, a place defined by rigid discipline, deep religious pressure, and constant fear of failure. Those years left a mark. He became withdrawn, suspicious, and increasingly isolated inside his own thoughts. When Rudolf inherited the throne, he did not rush into war. Decision-making terrified him. Every choice felt dangerous, because Rudolf believed that a wrong decision was not just a political mistake, it was a cosmic one. While other rulers trusted their generals, Rudolf trusted knowledge. He moved his court to Prague and filled it with unusual figures: astronomers, astrologers, alchemists, philosophers. To Rudolf, science, magic, and astrology were not separate things. They were all attempts to understand the universe. But curiosity slowly turned into fear. Rudolf became convinced that if the planets were hostile, no decision could succeed. So he waited. He delayed wars, postponed reforms, avoided confrontation, and while he waited for the stars to align, his empire began to weaken. Nobles grew impatient. Rivals grew bold. Even his own family turned against him. Rudolf was not defeated on the battlefield. He was undone by indecision. History does not remember Rudolf II as a great conqueror or a ruthless tyrant. It remembers him as an emperor who was afraid to act, and that fear pushed him closer and closer to the sky. Because on Earth, Rudolf found no certainty. Only above, among the planets, did he believe answers could be found. Tycho Brahe was not an ordinary scientist. He was born into Danish nobility, raised with privilege and obsessed with the sky from a young age. But history remembers him not only for his genius, it remembers him for his nose. As a young man, Tycho Brahe fought a duel, not over honor, not over politics, over mathematics. The argument escalated, steel was drawn, and in a single moment, Tycho Brahe lost his nose. For the rest of his life, he wore a prosthetic nose made of metal, silver, sometimes brass. It was more than an injury. It became his signature. Brahe was brilliant and difficult, proud, stubborn, unwilling to accept correction. But his mind was extraordinary. Long before telescopes existed, Tycho Brahe measured the heavens with unmatched precision. Night after night, year after year, he recorded the positions of stars and planets by hand. His observations were so accurate that later scientists would rely on them to change astronomy forever. But Tycho Brahe did not see a boundary between astronomy and astrology. To him, measuring the sky and interpreting its meaning were inseparable. Planets were not just objects. They were forces. Mars signaled conflict. Saturn warned of decay. Jupiter promised power. And when these forces aligned, they influenced events on Earth. Or so he believed. This belief made him dangerous. Kings did not invite Brahe only to observe the stars. They wanted certainty, predictions, warnings, and Brahe gave them, supported by charts, calculations, and absolute confidence. When Emperor Rudolf II summoned him to Prague, Tycho Brahe entered a court where science, fear, and power shared the same space. An emperor searching for answers had found a man who claimed to read fate in the sky. And from that moment on, Tycho Brahe was no longer just an astronomer. He was a voice that could shape the decisions of an empire. The court of Prague was not an ordinary palace. It was a place where astronomers, astrologers, chemists, and alchemists worked side by side. For Rudolf II, science, magic, and astrology were not separate worlds. They were one, different paths toward the same goal: understanding the universe. Within the palace walls, Tycho Brahe worked tirelessly. He constructed star charts, calculated planetary positions, tracked movements across the sky with obsessive precision. But he did more than measure. Tycho Brahe interpreted. He translated the language of the planets into meaning, into warnings. And yes, he spoke directly to the emperor. He did not simply observe the heavens, he warned an empire. Tycho Brahe warned Rudolf II, Saturn stands in a dangerous position during your reign. In astrology, Saturn meant decline, decay, and internal collapse. After this warning, Rudolf changed. He delayed decisions even longer, trusted no one completely, avoided war whenever possible. Rudolf II had power, armies, territories, a crown. What he lacked was certainty. Every decision felt dangerous, not because of enemies, but because of timing. Rudolf believed that acting at the wrong moment could destroy everything. So he waited. He delayed orders, postponed wars, trusted no one completely. While he searched the sky for answers, the world below moved on. Allies lost patience. Rivals grew bolder. His own nobles began to doubt him. Rudolf was not defeated in battle. He was defeated by hesitation, because power without action is not strength. It is fear. Tycho Brahe died in 1601. The man who read the sky was gone, but the fear he planted remained. Rudolf II did not find relief. Without Tycho, the stars did not fall silent. They became louder. Another astronomer arrived. New charts were drawn, new warnings whispered. But Rudolf had already learned how to fear the sky. By then, astrology was no longer a tool. It was a habit, a dependency. Rudolf could no longer decide without looking upward. Tycho Brahe did not destroy the empire. But after he left, Rudolf no longer trusted himself. And an emperor who cannot trust himself has already lost. Tycho was gone. The fear stayed, and slowly it finished the work. Rudolf II ruled an empire, but in the end, the empire was not ruled by armies or enemies or war. It was ruled by fear. Tycho Brahe did not command troops. He did not give orders. He only looked at the sky. But once fear entered the palace, it never left. Rudolf waited for the stars, while the stars waited for nothing. Time moved forward. Opportunities passed. Power slipped away. The planets did not destroy the empire. Belief did. Fear did. This is how empires fall. Not always with fire, not always with blood. Sometimes they fall quietly, while waiting for the perfect moment that never comes.